Welcome to the Expert Network Team podcast. In today's podcast, we'll continue our conversation with Diana Kokoszka, the author of Becoming More. Diana is going to begin with her explanation of the language that we use and how important it is, and then give us some advice about be, do, have, and give. She'll continue and end our conversation with the biggest piece of advice she could give us and the power that has enabled her to achieve so much success in her life. So make sure to stay until the end.
The words that we say to people sometimes go deep into their brain. I have a friend, she was in a mentorship group with me many years ago. And she said, Diana, I've always wanted to sing. And I said, okay, so you desire to sing, why don't you sing? And she says, I don't sing anywhere. I don't sing at church. I just mouth the words. I went, what? What are you doing? And she said, well, when I was young, my mom told me I was a terrible singer. In fact, she said that when I would sing, it would hurt her head. And so I didn't sing. She said, but then I went to school and I changed schools and they had a choir. And I was so excited. I joined the choir and I started singing for the gentleman. And he goes, you know what? Because you don't know alto, why don't you just mouth the words? And she said, I've been mouthing the words since 7th grade.
What's that?
And I went, now she was in her 50s. And I said, okay, so sing to me, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I finally got her to sing. And then in the group the next day, there were about 14 of us. And I said, so today we're all going to be honored because she's going to sing a song to us, because she had promised me that she would do that when I called on her, right? And I told them the story. I mean, they gave her a standing ovation. It was something that was so little to us, but so big to her. Now, she went back to business and literally more than doubled her business. And people go, what did singing have to do with her business? No, it wasn't about the singing. It was about confidence. Because see, when she doubted herself in this area, she doubted herself in other areas, and that gap just got bigger. So we never know what we say to someone and how it's going to land. And gosh, there could be people in therapy years later for something that we said that we didn't even see the wake that we were leaving behind us, right?
Yeah, that goes back to your environment point, that the some of what our mindset is driven by or programmed by our environment, but how powerful it is. Because I can imagine, and I feel this way sometimes when you're dealing with the idea of change, you think it's all up to you. You think you're the one that, and ultimately, the buck stops here. But how powerful it can be to have someone else express a belief in you. So it's partially that environment thing, but people need to understand they don't need to have this journey of change be a solo performance. It can be get people on board with you, tell people your goals, have them become your champions. And that way you have an external kind of force that's powering you forward.
Absolutely. Isn't our job, as a leader, isn't our job to help people bring that greatness that we see in them out of them? And it's kind of like if I gave you my child, he was going to come to work for you, I would expect you to help him get what he desired. I would expect you to help him become all that he could be. And I always said as a leader, my job was to take a stand for their greatness more than they would stand for their limitations, because people like to hang on to those limitations. They're comfortable, because let's face it, we're comfortable in the past, and many people decide to live in the past because they know what happened. The future is pretty frightening, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's why they say so many prisoners go back to prison. You know, they've been in prison. It's called the 6-12-6 syndrome. It's they get breakfast at 6, they get lunch at 12, they get dinner at 6. And so 6-12-6, it's a routine that they've become so comfortable in. And then they get out of prison after 20 years. And yes, the prisons have done everything they could to help them, yet they get out and many of them go back because they don't like that uncomfortable zone. For 20 years, they've had a comfort zone and their brain has become so accustomed to it, they would rather be back in having that same comfortableness. And I truly believe that, and I wrote in my book about every one of us live in a prison that we've created ourselves. Our thoughts are the bar of a cage, and inside the cage is our comfort zone. And yeah, we have a great house and we have great cars and we have all these things going for us. Yet until we step out of our comfort zone, we're still living in that prison that we've developed for ourselves and built so well, right? And like my mentor, John Maxwell, says, we have uphill goals with downhill habits. And in my book, I say, every goal that you set, there's a toll booth you have to pass through. Every goal is going to have a price to pay. And part of that price is stepping out of that comfort zone into that uncomfortable zone and going after the goal of your dreams. And I don't believe that people, you know, most people, they set their goals so low and hit them. I'd rather have people set them so high that they get halfway there because of who they become. Okay, I'm going to take one more thing, just came to my mind. I got to share it with you. Jim Rohn, who was a mentor of mine as well before he passed. And, you know, it was interesting. I would pick him up in Denver when I lived there and take him to where he was speaking. And I got to introduce him once. It was so much fun. And he was such a great philosopher. But he said to me one day, Diana, set a goal to make $1 million. Now, this was back in like 1978, 79, right? So that's about what, 4 million, 5 million today. And he said, do it in a year. And I said, okay. And he said, not for the money. Set the goal for who you will become in the process of getting there. And I learned in that one sentence what most people don't learn in a lifetime. You set goals for who you will become, not to obtain the goal itself. That's why becoming more is so important.
I've always been a goal setter, and up until the past few years, I really used to think that my job to get to the next goal was to cultivate the perfect prim path on the way there, that I had these very specific steps in mind, and that those were going to be the things that I had to check off and check off and check off till I reached the spot where I've accomplished a thing and then I'm moving towards the next thing. And slowly I've been learning, of course, that accomplishing those goals don't happen through these perfectly cultivated, and life will not do that for you, right? If you wait until you're perfectly ready and you've saved enough money, or you know, have taken all the parenting classes, and you wait until all the ducks are in a row, and then it's time for you to have your first child or get married or go have, you know, get a different degree or something, you will literally never do it, because there will always be something else that is not quite right, that hasn't cultivated that environment that you think is required for the success. Thankfully, Nate is really helping our team grow and our clients and things to kind of start identifying the places where, if you feel scared and you feel worried and you feel challenged, that is the right place to be, because that is the environment that will cultivate the growth and the crazy goals, right? Set it really high. And then if you never get there, you know, it's the goofy shoot for the moon, shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars. But it's so accurate, because we are so limiting in, I want to set a goal that I can reach because that makes me feel good, right? Because then I can say I've done the thing. And it's harder to set yourself up for potential failure or success, depending on how you look at it, if you're always trying to maintain control over how you get there.
You know, it's really interesting. First of all, Nate, congratulations on doing that and getting people outside their comfort zone. That's an art all in itself of leadership. And what came to my mind is, you know, the Chinese finger trap. I don't know if you've ever used those. You put your fingers in, and the more you pull on it, right, you can't get out, the tighter it grips. That's kind of like life when we want to control something. And yet that finger trap, when you push in, your fingers come out real easy. That pushing in is surrendering to it. And I believe that no one teaches us that. It's like I majored in physics and math. And so I did learn when they went to the moon, you know, how often were they on goal? How often were they right on that trajectory that was the straight path to the moon? 3%. They were off track 97% of the time. And that helped me so much in setting goals. I thought, as long as I'm on track 3% of the time, man, I'm going to make it, right? And yet we're taught somehow, some way that we've got to have all these perfect steps and we've got to be in control. And when we're in control, man, we're doing good. Instead of saying, I've got to have more emotion around my goal. When you write down a goal, and I do this exercise with many people when I speak and do a workshop, is we write down 3 goals and we leave space in between. And then in under that space, well, in the space under the goal, we write down all the emotions that we have around that goal. Like, I can't wait to get up in the morning just to go after this goal, or it's not really exciting. I don't care if I get up and do it or not, right? We write it all down. And I'm here to tell you, the people that have a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, and they attach that emotion to that goal, that is when they're going to make goal. I mean, I don't care what it is. Nothing's going to step in their way because that passion is going to drive them and keep them going. So I love what you're talking about and setting goals. And Nate, you helping them. Many people set goals and here's the gap. And then they come up and they still look at the gap. And they come up and they still look at the gap. And I'm going, no, look at the gain that you've made. Dan Sullivan wrote a book about that, the gap and the gain. And I think when we turn it around and say, how far have I come and how far do I have to go, right? That's when we start really making our goals to exciting.
Yeah. Jeff and Carl and I have all worked with a business guru
Yeah.
who has a phrase, ponate,
Oh,
which is
keep moving.
purposeful movement in a committed direction. That's all you don't have to have the perfect plan. You just have to know the moon and then purposeful movement in that direction, and you can course correct along the way. You can version your plan as you go. It doesn't have to all be known. Now,
You can be a little
granted,
messy.
if you're traveling to the moon, you kind of want to know how you're going to get there, but
Apollo 13.
but
Worked out.
yeah,
Tape goes a long ways.
and pencils. But no, that purposeful movement and committed direction, just getting in motion, you'll find solutions along the way. You'll find opportunity along the way. You'll find yourself along the way. You know, to think that we know what we want before we even get moving is you mentioned
Figured out all
hubris
right.
earlier. Like to think that we've got it all figured out before we even start the journey
It's impossible.
is hubris in action.
Yeah, it really is. You're very spot on, right? We have this working memory in our brain, and when we give that working memory focused attention and deliberate practice, we'll be able to accomplish anything. So it's a matter of, well, let's just say you pick a principle every single day that you want to work on. And throughout the day, you speak about that principle. You give your I am statements in the morning about that principle. And it's amazing how pretty quickly it gets into that working memory, and it's just who you become. You just change.
Yeah, I'm going to go back, and I think this is something that you have in your a phrase you coin in the book is what is it? There's a be, do, have, give.
Yes.
And how much that sharing what we're doing and helping other people can actually help us achieve our goal. Can you talk a little bit about the be, do, have, give?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's one of my favorite things because so many people, well, first of all, every one of us have a story, and every story has a victim, a villain, and a hero, right? Now, some stories have coaches and mentors, which I think everyone should have. Yet, let's focus on those three. When people sit and say, well, if I had what they had, I could do what they do, and then I could be like them. And that's treating yourself like a victim and living in a world of have, do, be. The villain, oh, they live in the world of you just got to work harder. Just do it, do it, do it, do it, right? And they live in the world of if I do it, then I'll have it, then I can be like them. So it's do, have, be. Yet we realize that we have to be like them in order to do what they do and have what they have, and eventually be able to give all that we want to give. Because when we're being that person, thinking like them, then we're able to do what needs to be done. And when we do what needs to be done, then we can have what that gives to us, and then we're able to give back to others. So the hero lives his life in be, do, have.
It's hard to save someone if you're drowning.
Yeah.
You probably better save yourself first.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good idea.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good point. And I think what people the phrase that comes to mind is Viktor Frankl. I love his book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he says, when we're no longer able to change the situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. And I think a lot of times people want to blame other people. It's really easy to do. We say, well, it's their fault. They did it. There's the reason. And they're pointing at something else, and there's three fingers pointing back at them. So, like my dad always said, Diana, the odds are 3-1. It's your own fault. So take responsibility and move on. And all of us have 4 storytellers in our mind. And that's how we kind of make up these stories that we live in, like, I can't change, right? The first storyteller is the devious one. It's the one that says, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'm too tall. I'm too short. I'm not smart enough. I'll never be able to accomplish it. And it wants to keep us in that victimhood. The second storyteller is the flattering storyteller. That's the one that says, oh, I don't need to take any more classes. I already know everything. I don't need to read another book. We start thinking and we get that hubris born of success, right? Now, the third one is the one that scares me. It's the one I just kind of spoke about. It's the one that gives us reasons and excuses for whatever is happening in our life. And I say you can have reasons or results. You can't have both. The fourth storyteller is what all of you do. And Nate, you've demonstrated this very well. And that's the empowering storyteller, that we not only empower ourselves, we empower other people. And we realize that when people, they're not going to think like us. If we're a leader and we get upset because people don't think like we do, well, if they thought like we did and did everything we did, they would have our job, for heaven's sakes. So we've got to remember that everyone is in a different place in their life. And how can I empower them? How can I bring the greatness out in them? How can I bring that gift that God gave to them? Because we all have a gift. The problem is most people haven't opened theirs up. Some of them don't. They don't even know what it is. But you guys have been helping people find their gift for quite a while.
pretty empowering. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I agree. I think Nate's mess that he's making at his firm is just working out really well.
Yeah.
Man,
Thank you.
you guys are amazing. Hey, I want to do, and we can do that because we are good friends for decades, man. We just watched you grow, like you and Suzanne, and now look at what you got. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Way to go.
No, it's fun.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. I wanted to, and you brought it up already, and you told some of the stories. So I had to read chapter 10 twice, and this is the one about emotions, because what you're saying in there is something that is hard for me to get my head around. And I know it to be true, which is that my thoughts can change my emotions, which lead to my thoughts, which change my emotions. And a long time ago, one of my mentors, I sat in front of him, and he's one of the legends in my industry. And at that point in time, he'd probably been in the industry 40 years. This is probably, he's probably 60 years in the industry now. And he said, Carl, you just need to change your tune, dude. Like, you can change the way you feel about this client who's causing you problems. Change the way you feel. Change your thoughts. You have control over them. You can change the way you feel.
We can. We actually can. And that was good advice from him, because you're right. It's called the body and mind connection. When you have insecure thoughts, you feel insecure. And when you feel insecure, you keep having more insecure thoughts. And it just keeps going from mind to body, body to mind, mind to body, body to mind, and until something changes. And I say motion equals emotion. So get up and dance around if you want to change your emotions. Get up and do something different. Take a walk, punch the pillow. I don't care what it
The
is.
Superman pose. Have you've heard about doing the Superman pose?
It gives you confidence, right?
Wonder Woman.
Your chest out.
Wonder Woman,
Ted Lasso,
Superman.
she
Ted
does
Lasso.
in the mirror.
But you talk about the mind body, it can start either place. Like the Superman pose idea is you are imposing on your subconscious an expansive power pose. No, that's very interesting.
Salutations in yoga. Chest to the sky is like a
He's a
invitation.
yoga. He's a yogi.
I am. I'm a big believer in yoga. Really powerful. I am.
It is powerful. And the interesting part that a lot of people get mixed up, feelings are not the same as emotions. That they're not interchangeable. And I love it when people say, well, you made me feel, and I'm going, no, you chose to feel that way. Nobody can make you feel anything. So when we say, I choose to feel angry, by the way, did you know that you can't keep anger in your mind or anywhere unless you attach it to something or someone that you're angry at? That emotion, that feeling of anger cannot even exist in your body if you will release who you're angry at or release what you're angry about. And I just found that fascinating as I've worked through that myself. When something gets me a little riled up, because we can all be triggered, right? And to be able to switch to something else, to think about someone else, something else, and say, if I were to learn from this, what would I learn? And the anger goes away. The frustration goes away, because now your brain is focusing on a different emotion and a different feeling. So
I like being angry at the Lakers, though.
As a jazz fan?
Yeah, the Lakers are the reason for everything bad. I hate the Lakers.
And as a Nuggets fan, I concur with you on that. Yes.
Okay. But we do, in my family, we have this joke, because whenever we say, you're getting to like blame and fault and stuff like that, we actually have almost turned it into a comical thing where everything that goes wrong, we blame it on the same person. And we know we're joking around, but we're pointing out the ridiculousness of not taking responsibility. Well, it's so-and-so's fault. It's always so-and-so's fault, even though they're like not even in the state, right? It's their fault. So it's one of the little humorous things that we do in our family to basically show that we are shirking personal responsibility for accepting the outcome.
That's so good. It was Dr. Joe Dispenza that said, if you allow your emotions to stay that way for an hour, it's called a mood. If you let it stay that way for a week or a month, it's called a temperament. And if you let it go on forever, it will be a personality trait that you keep for your life, right? So we've got to kind of look at those emotions. I know Dr. Amen has a book. I forget exactly the name of it. It's about dragons. And every dragon is a different type of feeling, which is quite comical, much like yours when you say, oh, it's so-and-so fault. Kind of like that commercial when I was younger. Oh, give it to Mikey. Mikey eats
Yeah,
everything.
Mikey likes it. Mikey hates everything. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. It's the like cereal or life
Life cereal, yeah.
cereal, yeah.
That's what it
Which
was. I
couldn't
couldn't
be more
remember.
inappropriately named, but we won't get into that.
So, Diana, I'd
Oh.
like to, as we kind of come to a conclusion here, we've been almost an hour. Thank you for
Yeah.
your time. I'm just itching to just kind of get your perspective and understand and hear from you. How much has your faith impacted your work? And we oftentimes, obviously, we're talking about science, neurological science here. We've talked a lot about brain pathways and so on and so forth. But just knowing your background, your work with John Maxwell, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with us, maybe in closing, what that connection has looked like for you.
Thank you so much for that. You know, it's interesting because right now I'm doing a 21-day of prayer and fast. And yeah, it means a lot to me. It really does. And John's been my mentor for 28 years. Like I said, I sit on his board of directors and with the program Equip, where we go out and we bring values to people and lots of great things happening there. I'm not here to put my faith on anyone else, yet it is a big part of my life because I truly believe and I just think that Jesus is my partner. I mean, you know, everything to me comes from God. And so if everything comes from him, we're only stewards of what he gives to us. And I want to steward that really well. And we're here to be in service of others, not to be slaves to others, yet to be service, to add value to other people, to use our talent, to multiply our talent. That's why when I could retire, I couldn't retire because that means I'm not multiplying my talent anymore. And I want to add value to people. I think that whatever your faith is, bring it into your work. Bring it into what you do. I'm a person that I do like John Maxwell's Leadership Bible. By the way, one person I was standing there and when John signs books and he had a leadership Bible he had just bought and he goes, wow, he said, did you write the Bible? And I thought that was so, I just started laughing. It was so cute. But in there, to realize the characteristics of all these people, there's so much. It's the greatest leadership book around when you look at it and what it brings to us and what it teaches us. So, yeah, I could probably go on for a long time about how I bring it in, the principles that I teach, the things in my book. In fact, the program Bold, the people that knew the Bible, I had 31 bold laws, and they used to say, oh, that came from Matthew 7:7. Oh, that came from James 2:17. Oh, that, and they would all be guessing which scripture it came from, even though none of it was scripture, right? They kind of figured it all out, though. It was quite fun. And when we use those principles, things work. Things work. I went from literally not being able to afford a babysitter, putting my kids in a little red wagon, going door to door, no leads, just grit, to the CEO position and helping to build the largest coaching and most profitable coaching and training program in the world in real estate. I didn't do that alone. I didn't do that with fear. I had to have faith, and I had to have faith in what was important. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. Thank you for being honest with us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. That was really, really touching and powerful and rings true with my world experience.
Mhm.
We appreciate you, Diana. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Do
Thank
you have
you.
any closing thoughts you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, just one. I hope I can get through it. This morning in my prayer, I asked that I would be able to share my faith. I haven't been all day. Nobody's asked me. And that's why I know he lives.
Mhm. Amen.
Because you
Mhm.
asked me that question. Prayers are answered when you have the faith that they will be. And that's not to say that you didn't have your diagnosis, and a miracle occurred because you didn't have faith. I don't want people to have a misconception around that. Yet I truly believe that when you put your best foot forward and know someone that is walking alongside you, you got the best life ever.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Diana. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
the
you,
questions
Diana.
you asked were fabulous. My goodness. Keep up the great work. Make certain you watch your thoughts and your words, because those things will point the direction for the rest of your life. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the discussion and the information we shared.
We hope you enjoy the information contained in today's podcast and find it useful.
We hope you will join us again next time as we explore new areas of interest to our listeners or current issues we believe are important to discuss.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you are notified when future episodes are released, and also share it with a friend that you think would benefit.
If you'd like to meet with a member of the Expert Network team or have a request for a special topic you'd like to have us discuss on the podcast, submit those requests to info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
Thank you for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. We want to remind you that listening to this podcast does not establish a client-professional relationship with any of the professional firms represented, including guests, nor does it constitute legal, investment, accounting, or other advice of a fiduciary nature. The views expressed are those of the professionals only.
Investment advisor services may be provided through A&I Wealth Management. Securities may be provided through Genios Wealth Management.